Good morning, and thanks for joining me again for another webinar in the series of webinars that's designed to help our partners navigate through the IoT minefield. During today's webinar, I'm going to keep all of your lines on mute. I'll go through the webinar, then at the end of the webinar, you'll get the option to ask questions where I'll be able to unmute lines individually. So we have a few key goals here at Zest4 when it comes to IoT. We want to help our existing and prospective partners understand what the opportunity is within IoT. We want to look at how Zest4 can help you sell IoT, and to educate our partners on what connectivity and end-to-end solutions we're able to offer out to channel in order to enable partners to start to recognise some real long-term revenue from IoT and other related services. On this particular webinar, I want to achieve a few things that will help us towards these goals. Firstly, introduce an alternative connectivity solution in LoRa WAN. Secondly, to show you what we can do to help you manage a building and make it smart. And thirdly, walk through a demo of our LoRa WAN Smart Building demo site to give you some real insight into what we're doing today with some of our existing partners and their end users. So let's look at a little bit of insight into what's happening in IoT. We're now seeing more and more opportunities and organisations turning to IoT solutions to make their business more efficient. A few stats here for you. 80% of adopters are reporting significant benefits are being seen when they transition and move the manual processes from their businesses to an automated IoT solution. And they're all spending more and more on IoT each month. 67% of businesses are seeing significant ROI by transitioning their businesses to IoT. And we're on track to see 20 billion connected devices live by the close of 2020. But IoT is not just about cellular connections. A connected device is deemed as anything that has the ability to communicate or pass data to another connected device or solution without any human interaction. In order to achieve the figures that you saw on the previous slide, then we have to look at alternative and complementary connectivity solutions to achieve this. So these can be things like fixed line services, any form of wireless connectivity, including sort of Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. We're seeing satellite used more and more. Most are familiar with 2G, 3G, 4G, and soon we'll have 5G. But then we have the low power solutions, and it's these that I'll start to look at today. So what is a low power solution and why is it needed? Well, using a low power solution, it will allow us to connect things that we've previously found either impossible or impractical to connect. As an example, a single gateway device, which is effectively a low power router, has the ability to transmit and receive a signal up to about a 15-kilometer radius without the need for any boosters. This means one transmitter can serve literally hundreds of sensors without having to have SIMs in each one of these sensors. The penetration capabilities of low power means that we can get data to transmit and be received in basements, car parks, other areas where previously we've struggled to achieve with cellular connectivity. We can now reach rural locations where there's no cellular coverage. And because the low power sensors use very little power, we can see between 5 and 10 years life from a battery. This means it's possible to have sensors underground or in remote locations where no power supply exists. LoRa WAN is just this type of solution. So let's have a quick look at how this works. The setup and architecture is very similar to that of a cellular network. So if we start on the left hand side, we can see LoRa devices or sensors. These could be placed in any of the buildings or locations required. They would use a low power signal to communicate with the gateway device, which, as I said earlier, is similar to a cellular router. This could be up to 15 kilometers away in some cases. A gateway can usually handle hundreds and hundreds of sensor connections. Within the gateway, you'd then usually have a 4G SIM card to send the data up to the LoRa WAN network and partner server. The data from here would then be presented to some form of dashboard or platform that's bespoke to the solution being used. And because of the versatility of this low power service, we're seeing this technology being used in many types of solutions now, from smart metering projects through to smart cities. But what we're going to be looking at today is how we're using this technology to make smart buildings. So let's take a look at the demo portal and I'll show you the type of things that we're doing in the smart building space. This is one of the setups that we have to date that's live that we can use for demonstration purposes. And I'm sure you'll recognize the building that we're reviewing. There are several different views of dashboards that are available to us, and I'll show you a few later, but for now, let's take a look at the basic platform with floor plans, etc. The initial points of measurement that I'm going to be showing you today are things like energy monitoring, temperature monitoring, humidity monitoring, and desk utilization. So let's start in the basement. As we look at the basement, if I hover over any of the icons that I can see here, I can see the number of sensors that I have within each element. I can also see the types of sensor I have. So gas, water, electricity, etc. I can also see the present state of them and the fact that at least one of them is in an alarmed state. So if I take a look at the sensors in a bit more detail, and if I start with the one at the top, I can see the main gas consumption for the building. I can report on various areas here, but for this site we're showing the current meter reading and the daily usage. And if I click through here, it'll show me how much gas is being used at each point during the day. If I have various devices in a building that use the gas, then I can have a sensor on each gas feed so I can see how much individual device is using. I have the same readings for this below for the water meter, and again, by clicking through, I can see the peak times of day that water is being used. Again, I could have sensors placed all over the building and monitor individual water supplies to see where the water is being consumed. I then have the same level of information available for the electricity supply. Now this is quite common in a lot of key buildings. You'll see on this site it has a backup generator. Clearly this is used in case of emergencies, and although it's not in use, I need to know that should it be called upon, it's ready to go. And looking at the generator, I can see the unit is powered on. I can see that there are no alarms or warnings, and I can see that the fuel level is okay. So this should be ready to go should we have a failure at any point. I then have a few sensors here that are away from the main meters that are monitoring the utilization in real time. Using these sensors, I can choose what areas I want to see and see how the building power supply is performing. Now, I'm not an electrical or maintenance expert, so I won't pretend to know what each of these readings means, but I'll show you the type of information that can be seen. As you can see on all the sensors and the elements in the dashboard, you can set a maximum and a minimum threshold. If you do this, you then get the system to trigger an alarm and report on any thresholds that have been broken. So if I click through and take a look at this one, I can see the levels that have been set, the minimum and maximums, and I can see on a couple of occasions the consumption on this sensor has breached one of the warnings. This is why we had an alarm earlier. And if I click through on any of the sensors, I can see the same level of information. Once I've got the graph format up, if I use any of the tabs at the bottom, I can change the level of information that I see and the date range and the units, etc. As you can see, many different areas you can measure. Clearly what you're seeing is in graphical format, but also if I go to the top right hand corner of the graph, I can download this information in various other elements and print it out. So let's come out of the basement now and look at another area of the building that's being monitored. We'll take a look at the first floor offices. So I can see initially, first floor officers, I've got a number of sensors that are in there, but also I've got a number of sensors that are in an alarm state. And if you recall what I said earlier about the alarms, I advised you could set a minimum and a maximum threshold. This tells me that one of the thresholds around these alarms has been breached. And whoever was responsible for these alerts will have been notified. And one of the alerts is coming from the boardroom. If I hover over this, I can see the alert is coming from the air quality monitoring, measured by ppm. Other elements that we're monitoring in the boardroom is humidity and also temperature. So if we click through onto this, we can see the thresholds that were set, and we can see that the air quality is down to the CO2, and it's been well above the agreed threshold for a period of time now, but clearly hasn't been addressed. If I come out of there and have a look at the temperature monitoring, I can see nowhere near either the top or bottom threshold, so this sensor is performing perfectly and the room's at the right temperature. Again, the tabs at the bottom allow me to report on other elements, and also if I've got sensors in other rooms, I can click through those and see how they're performing. I can also see there's alerts in one of the meeting rooms here, and I've also got sensors in a meeting room here, but all these seem to be performing perfectly. So let's pop out of the first floor offices now and take a look at elsewhere in the building. Let's go into the restaurant. I can see I've got a number of sensors in the restaurant. Again, I've got a few with alarms. As I come into this area, I've got a few different types of sensors now that's measuring information for me in the restaurant. For a start, I have sensors placed in all the freezers to make sure they're operating at the maximum efficiency and to warn me of any malfunction. In this environment, particularly in a restaurant, I've just got the cost of any spoilt produce if a freezer goes down, but there's also the health and safety risk involved. Using our fridge and freezer sensors, you've got access to a full suite of HACCP reporting, as well as the normal fridge reports that a business needs to supply and meet the health and safety standards. The great thing here is all our reports are automated, so it takes the strain away from the resource required to manage and monitor. Whilst looking at the freezer sensors, I can see there's maximum and minimum thresholds been set, and again, if I click through, I can see how the freezer is performing. So I can see nowhere near our thresholds. Other useful sensors we have in the restaurant area are occupancy sensors on the chairs. This gives a view of what chairs are occupied and what chairs aren't. So we can start to get useful data from this that shows trends regarding when the restaurant is full, how long people stay in the restaurant, when a chair is being utilised and when it isn't exactly. And I am skipping through some of this quite quickly because I do have quite a bit to show you. So I'll come out of the restaurant now and we'll take a look at the 12th floor. I've got similar sorts of measurements on the 12th floor. So again, I can see I've got two sensors that are in alarm, both of them for air quality again. But the types of things we're measuring are the same as before: temperature, air quality, and humidity. And I've also got a sensor at the T-point to make sure people are comfortable there. What we do have around the building in some of the hot desk areas are also some of the movement sensors on the chairs. As well as being useful in a restaurant, they're ideal to manage how long people are sitting at a hot desk for, and also for individuals to look for a vacant hot desk rather than having to walk around the building. So quite a bit of information you can get just from placing sensors on what would normally be non-connected objects. So other areas that we monitor using smart building sensors are things like Legionella. So I'll give you a view of different dashboards to show you these in a different format. So if I look at our Legionella dashboard, I can see numerous elements here. So I've got notifications. This tells me that if we've had alarms and if the alarms have actually been dealt with. I can see monthly reporting. Again, from a Legionella point of view, what you need to be able to do is identify that you're measuring and monitoring the hot and cold temperatures on a regular basis throughout the month. you can upload schematics. Whilst we've gotten on in for this building, you can upload these so you can see exactly where all the sensors are. And clearly there's a dashboard that will enable you to see exactly what's monitoring. And if I show you what a basic dashboard would look like with the sensors, I can see the sensors we've got planned out here at the moment. Most are performing perfectly. However, the female water tap has had a few issues. The cold tap on the kitchen sink has had a number of issues. All these can then be investigated and measured and monitored to make sure that a building stays completely compliant from a Legionella point of view. Once I have a notification, I can click on it and I can see exactly what the issue is. If any actions have been completed, there's an audit trail. An engineer would go in, make a note of the actions he completed, and you would then get a list of them here, and this would change to a green completed. If I just wanted a quick snapshot overview, I can see of the total of sensors, 8 passed, 1 failed, and I've had 5 notifications. Click on conditions, and these are the different types of dashboards you can see. So if it's easier to monitor with a traffic light system, I can see the same level of information again. So incoming cold main, I can see the temperature. Cold water tank, I can see the temperature. Kitchen sink, I can see the temperature. And again, if any of these were in alarm at this particular moment in time, it would be flashing red to let me know. So a really easy way of managing and monitoring hot and cold temperatures of the water within a building. Now, Legionella compliance is really important, particularly in the food industries or in healthcare. So this could be an element that's sold as a standalone piece of kit. Now, at this present moment in time, I'm not going to go into the reporting because that could be a full webinar in itself. But you can get a full picture from the reports from the system of what your building is doing and how you can stay compliant in all areas. This building we're looking at today also has a weather station. So if we're going to here, we can see what's happening externally as well as what's happening internally. And types of things that we're monitoring on here, again, is air quality, external temperature, wind velocity, air pressure, the solar power that's coming into the building. Again, various different dashboards and conditions that we can look at depending on sort of the end user and how they want to see things presented. So I won't go into any of these in any more detail because air quality is not something that everyone would want to look at. But one of the things that we do find sort of really useful is things like digital gas analyzers. When you've identified that there's different gases around, it's useful to be able to break this down and monitor specific gases for specific areas. So again, some of the sensors that we've got out here in this building will give us this level of information. And there's nothing stopping you putting multiple sensors into the same office. So if I look at this office here, I can see I'm measuring multiple things. And if I look in more detail, I'm looking at electricity being used. I can see that there's that I'm monitoring the doors to see whether they're open, whether they're closed. And I've also got different dashboard views that I can look at to present the information to me differently. So I can see the downstairs door is in alarm, it's open. I can see the temperature in the sales room is higher than I want it to be. Other areas, the doors are closed, temperatures are okay, the humidity is okay, the electricity is being used correctly, etc, etc, etc. I could go on and on from here, but for now I think you get the picture. And you can see the type of things we can offer from a building management point of view. So just to finish off the demo, let's take a quick look at some of the different dashboard options and some of the functions that you can see. As I said earlier, this is a typical office with numerous different types of sensors available for the office. If I look at refrigeration, I can get the same sort of dashboard. So I can see I've got 2 warnings and 1 close to a warning. Everything else is operating within the minimum and maximum thresholds that I've set. And all of the different dashboards are really easy and simple to select and use. Now let's take a look at the reports. This is where you'll find all your reports for managing the functionality and have the ability to configure all of the settings yourself. Officially, you'll be able to self-serve. Type of reports we can see in here are the audit trails, as I said earlier. So if anyone makes a change or does anything to the sensors, fixes an alarm, you'll be able to see exactly what work's been carried out and by who. We can see the health and safety reporting. We can see exception reporting, i.e. alarms that have been made, any notifications, and many, many more. As I said earlier, I'm not going to go into the reports in too much detail because that's an entire webinar in itself. So what I will do now is leave the demo platform for there, because there's so many things we can do with it in relation to building management. The possibilities could go on and on and on. The great thing about the system though is that you could start with something really simple and just add to your system as your business grows, changes and develops. So now we're out of the demo, let's have a look at how this will work commercially. It's a very simple model. Each one of the sensors are individually priced. These can vary in price depending on what the sensor does, what it's detecting and the capabilities, etc. The gateway or router is also a one-off purchase. There's usually an activation fee per device that's added each time a device is connected to the network. This is to cover the build of the solution. Then, as per your SIM card services today, there's a monthly or annual subscription for the data consumption and licensing of the software. This is usually volume based, so the more devices that you have connected in a system, the lower the subscription per device. And as with all of our solutions, we can wrap up the upfront costs and the monthly subs and any activation fees into one easily monthly lease purchase option if required. So this will bring the webinar to a close for today, but as with every one of the webinars that we do, it will be available to download, and I will share a link with everyone that's registered today to be able to download and view that in their own time. If you go to the Zest4 YouTube channel, you'll not only be able to see this webinar, but you'll also be able to see all the other webinars that we've used along this IoT series. So for now, what I'm going to do is ask if you've got any questions. If you have, please use the tab at the bottom to raise your hand. I'll unmute your microphone and I'll do what I can to answer your question. Anything I can't answer today, I will come back to you at a later stage. Over to you.